Welcome to our session 6 today, working with PDFs and exhibits a little bit more. And I have some PowerPoints down here at the bottom you can download that I'm going to be using. I'm going to use portions of these. Are quite lengthy in some cases, but I do want to cover the essentials out of these for you. And then also regarding the attaching exhibits to testimony, I want to get into that with you and demonstrate some of how that works. When you want to have a synchronized testimony and you want to have the exhibit pop up on the right hand of the screen so that when the jury is listening to the testimony, they also see the exhibit side by side with the synchronized transcript, video transcript. So we show you about how to go about doing that. Also, I'm hoping to get to it, using PowerPoint to create videos with narration. So if you click here, it's going to bring up the video that's down here, or you can just simply click here and it will play this video about how to create a video with PowerPoint. The reason why I have this here is that oftentimes when I've gone into trial with attorneys, they will want to have some of the exhibits into a PowerPoint slideshow, and they want to narrate what they want said when those exhibits come up. And instead of doing it sort of spontaneously in court, they want to have this very precise, and so they create a video with the exhibits and in PowerPoint, and then we have a microphone we use so that they go through the exhibits in PowerPoint, and at the same time their voice is being recorded on each of the slides, and then afterwards you can export the PowerPoint itself into a WMP4 file or WMV file, and then you can bring that video into trialdirector and present it as a part of the multimedia displays that you're making use of. There are a couple of reasons why that's the kind of handy thing to do. One of them is that there's a zoom feature in PowerPoint that works very well with some exhibits that is quite flexible in trialdirector. And so anyway, this video here will be something I hope to get to as we go along. But let's get into working with PDF files at this point, and I want to present this lesson to you here. So developed by Adobe systems a long time ago. There's a file format called PDF, portable document for format file. These files, as probably most of you are aware, can contain not only images and text, but also they can be interactive, they can have hyperlinks, they can have embedded fonts and video and a lot more. And so you'll often see product manuals, ebook flyers, and so on, scanned documents, brochures, all sorts of documents created in PDF format. But because PDFs don't rely on the software that created them, nor on any particular operating system or hardware, they look basically the same no matter what evidence they're, what device, I'm sorry, that they're opened on. And then there's also, and this is very, very important for presentations and submissions of PDF files as evidence, the PDF/A format, which is a relatively new file format in PDF format. It is called an ISO standard version of the portable document format. It specializes in the creation of PDF files that are good for archiving and long-term preservation. PDF-A differs from the PDF by prohibiting features ill-suited to long-term archiving, such as font linking as opposed to font embedding. And what's important here, I want to just discuss this a little bit. What that means is this, that when you create a PDF file, one way of creating it is allowing whatever fonts you've used to, instead of being embedded in the PDF file, the PDF data will go out and grab that font and use it off that particular computer. But what happens if you create a PDF file with a particular font that another computer doesn't have? What will happen is this. The PDF reader program that brings up that PDF file and looks for that particular font that is not on the computer now that is trying to look at this PDF file, the PDF reader will go out and pick a different font. Now you might say, well, that's all right. Well, it isn't, because what can happen is that the kerning is the distance between letters in a particular font style. And that distance between the letters can make a big difference on longer documents in terms of pagination. And so the spaces between the letters can affect something like this. Refer to page 45 for a chart. But now, because you've used a different font on that computer, the chart that was embedded in the PDF file is not on that page anymore because the pagination has changed. That can be a big problem, and other problems too. And so it's important when you create a PDF file for use in the legal environment to make sure that you create the PDF/A format. Word, when you create PDFs out of Word, has that as an option, and Adobe Acrobat has that as an option as well. But you have to make sure that you do embed the fonts in the file. And so part of the way of creating the PDF-A files is to have a program like Acrobat that will allow you to generate that /A format, or you can use Word if you have them in Word format and so on. One of the advantages of the PDF format is that you don't have to convert it to a TIFF file. The Adobe plugin is not required in trialdirector, and Adobe Acrobat is not required either when you bring these PDF files into trialdirector. Also, trialdirector converts on the fly, so PDFs can be used in trialdirector. If you have a mixture of TIFFs and PDF files, you'll notice that there's no difference in the way they work in the application. And then the native tab opens in PDF Reader, so you can search for the text. So even though if you have a PDF file here, the PDF files open in native format, but you can still search, do full text searching through these PDF files. You can pre-treat the PDFs with highlights and arrows, etc. You can't do this with like Word documents, Excel spreadsheets that you bring into trialdirector. You can't pre-treat them with all these annotation tools. So if you plan to pre-treat, say, a Word document, and instead of bringing it in as a native Word document, it would be better to convert it first into a PDF file, and then you can use your annotation tools to pre-treat the files. You can draw, you can highlight, you can do rectangles, ellipses, and so on, and point arrows on it, and pre-treat them. And also, when you bring up a PDF file, the callouts work very well on these particular types of files compared to some of the native files that you might bring in to trialdirector. So here's an example of using a callout to zoom in on a section of this PDF file. And then during the presentation, you can actually annotate on these files compared to the native files, and zoom in, do markups, and so on during presentation mode. And also in a PDF format, if you want to go to a particular number, you can type in the page number of the PDF to bring it up during presentation mode. Just type it in, hit enter, and it'll bring that page up for you. You can also use the scroll wheel on a mouse, so you can go up and down with the scroller wheel. You can, in your operating system, you can adjust how many pages, one page or more, depending on the operating system you're using. You can go to your device manager, and you can control how this wheel will work when you get it into Trial Director and you're wanting to zoom, to scroll back and forth through PDF files and other documents as well. So the benefits: it eliminates the need to convert a PDF to TIFF. Trial Director gives you that unique ability, and you can do pre-annotations on the PDFs, and it does not require any separate plugin to be able to use them when you are using PDF files in Trial Director. Okay, so I wanted to get to that. And now I wanted to also go into preparing and managing various types of exhibits. And this is a fairly long 64 slide presentation. I'm not going to cover every single slide, but I do want to go through some of these with you before we actually get into Trial Director itself here. So the main thing that I emphasize with Trial Director preparation is doing as much annotation on the exhibits as possible before you actually bring them up in presentation mode, and also making sure you've got your exhibits managed in the proper way. So I want to get into understanding native files and also using memos, and we'll get into working with annotations and markups in a session coming up, but I do want to talk a little bit more about that in this session as well. Correcting scanning mistakes. When you've got your documents into Trial Director, you might notice then you've got some scanning mistakes if you've used a scanner. Talk a little bit about watermarks, applying footers to images using the image brander that's built into Trial Director, exporting selected items to Adobe PDF files when you want to actually create some PDF files in Trial Director itself, a little bit about printing your items, and something about prepping multimedia files as well. So we'll see how far we can get here. So understanding native files. Now, native files are created like in Word, Excel. That's a special format that normally only these particular programs can read properly. So when a native file is loaded into Trial Director, it retains that original format. But what is unique in Trial Director is that native files can be viewed and presented in presentation mode using what is called a universal document viewer. It's included in the Trial Director application. But again, they cannot be annotated. You can't redact them. You can't zoom in on them using the Trial Director tools. And so although the Adobe PDF files are generally considered native files, they behave much more in Trial Director, especially like image files. So the PDF files can be pre-annotated and redacted, just like if they were their TIFF cousins. And in presentation mode, you can zoom in on them. You can do annotations on them just like a TIFF file or a JPEG file. And in the Case Explorer or Document Manager, you would click on the Native tab to view the native file. The native files do not show up as images. So I want to talk a little about using memos and attaching memos in Trial Director. So the way you attach a memo to a particular document, whether it be a PDF file or a JPEG or whether it be a native file, is you select the desired image or the data in Case Explorer. Then you select a View Item Memo from the document menu, or you can right button click on it and pick a memo. And the memo window is like a text editor. It allows you to type in your memo. Or if you have, for example, your memos in a Word document on a different sort of exhibits, you can highlight that, copy and paste it right into these this memo field. And then make sure you do pick your save changes under file after you type in the memos, or if you click the X up here to close the file, it'll warn you that you haven't saved the memo, or you can, and so you can say, yes, I want to save, or I want to cancel it if you didn't want to save the memo that you put in there. So that's the way you would open the memo. This is the way you open them. You view item memo from the document menu, or right click on the item. The memo window will appear, and then if the memo is edited, it must be saved again. Now, memos are searchable, and this is one reason why you use memos, is to add some searchable text into the trialdirector database, so that if the information you want to search for may not be embedded inside the file, you can then add these sort of indexing memos to the exhibits. When you want to delete a memo, basically it's a reverse procedure. You select the desired item in the Case Explorer or the Document Manager, open the memo, and then the memo window appears. You pick Remove the memo from the the Windows File menu, and close the window. So you can also load memos from what is considered a batch file. So if you have a memo field in a third-party database like Summation, you can transfer the memo information into trialdirector by loading memos from the batch file that those third-party programs will create. And the way you do it is you open the window by selecting View Item menu from the Documents menu, and then you choose Load Memo Text from a batch file from the File menu. And then you browse out to wherever that batch file happens to be, and on your computer system, you open it. And if there are item IDs in the memo batch file that cannot be found, because maybe they were accidentally typed differently, and it can't add these, there will be a warning message. It will appear, and it asks you if you want to view a list of the memos that could not be added. And then you'd say yes, and then you'd see which ones were not added in a kind of a memo add log like this. And you can tell by the exhibits that those memos were not brought in properly. And then you can deal with this, by going to those particular exhibits that were brought into trialdirector and don't have the memos attached, and recreate those. And now, if trialdirector was closed, this is important too. I've had this happen where a trialdirector was closed without shutting down properly. You have a crash, and it locks up or something, or the computer locks up. You may need to re-index the memos to refresh the database so that you can view the memos properly. And to do that, you open the memo window by selecting View Item Memo from the Documents menu. And when the memo window appears, you choose Reindex All Memos from the File menu. Otherwise, when you do your searches, those memos aren't going to be very helpful to you. So if you have a crash, then remember to do this procedure here. Then working with annotations and markups, there's really an extensive set of annotation tools, of course, and we'll get into these a little bit more in the future, but I did want to show you that we have some of these tools I want to go over with you at this point. For the redaction of confidential portions, you can use labels to apply predefined or customized exhibit stamps. You can stamp your images with a variety of what are called rubber stamps as well. So let's take a look at some of these possibilities. Annotating images in Case Explorer Document Manager gives you a chance to fine-tune complicated annotations when you're not under as much pressure as when you're in the courtroom. So this is what you want to do before you go in and present this information. It's called pre-treating your exhibits. And so we'll be dealing with that as we go along here. And really what annotations are simply overlays on the actual image file. So you're not doing anything permanently. to place that markup on the image. And when you save the marked up image, it's saved as what's called a build. And you work with a build just like other items in Case Explorer. Builds can be sent to a workbook. They can be printed, displayed on your desktop, or called up in presentation mode. It is important, however, to pay attention to how you save the annotated image, because you could save the annotated image to replace the other image. So you want to be careful of that. And if, by the way, you have used layers annotation tools in earlier versions of trialdirector, you're going to notice that layers are no longer available in trialdirector 6. I don't know if they're going to be available. I doubt it in 360, but you still can use builds instead. So they work with layers if you're familiar with the older version of trialdirector. So to open the annotation toolbar, you're going to click on the annotation toolbar when you're in the Case Explorer, and it'll show you all the annotation tools you got. This is what it looks like. And there's a considerable number of these. As I say, we're going to get into some more of these as we go along, but I want to expose you to this process of pre-treating. So you want to move and resize the annotation toolbar if you don't like where it is. At the top, you can tear it off. There's a little tear off bar here. You hold your left mouse button down and you can drag it somewhere and move it around so that you can make use of it over to the side or here, there, or the other place. And then when you want to close the toolbar, you're going to click on the upper right hand corner on the X to close it out. And so let's take a look at some of these. This is a selector tool, and it's really important sometimes when you're in presentation mode, you've been using one of these tools, and then you want to go back and pick a different exhibit, but this tool still is hanging on your mouse pointer. And so you need to make sure you click this selector tool to get out of that condition, so you can pick something else, pick a different annotation tool or pick a different exhibit. And that arrow there is not actually an annotation tool. This is the arrow for that, but this is a selector tool. And then these are your various tools for arrow, line, freehand drawing, and so on. And your redaction tool looks like this. You can put text boxes on top of your documents, your PDFs, your TIFFs, your images, not on your native files, but you can put them on the other types of data that you brought in. Sticky notes are just kind of like the sticky notes you stick on your computer and are kind of handy little reminders about things. And sometimes a juror likes to see these. That reminds them of what sticky notes are. Don't forget about this, you know, that kind of thing. And then stamps of different kinds, numbers and letters that, you know, you might use as you talk about different parts of an exhibit. You can put labels on. We'll talk about those. Desk cueing has to do with the slanting of the images when they're a little bit off center. You want to slant an image and that kind of thing. And so I'm going to keep going here. That selector tool, it reminds you here to edit, like if you have a annotation like a rectangle you've drawn on an exhibit and you want to resize it, you pick the selector tool and then you pick on the rectangle and you can drag it and reshape it and so on in your exhibit presentations that you're doing, or when you are actually working with markups as well. It tells you that these small square handles appear on an annotation indicating it is selected when you do, and then you can click on the corners to drag and drop them and resize the various annotations that you've put on the exhibit. And then if you've got it selected like that, you hit the delete key on your keyboard to remove the selected annotation off of the exhibit. Then you have a highlighter to highlight an area and an image you want to draw attention to. You choose the color from the color palette and then select the color that appears you know, you can just change your colors at will as you want to. There's a note here though that if you apply a solid white or a solid black highlight to an image, it will appear as a white or black redaction in the presentation view and presentation mode. And then the arrow tool, pretty self-explanatory. You can select the width of it and the pointer size of the arrow. All of these can be modified. The line tool to underline important points on an image. Rectangle ellipse tools. Freehand tool, sometimes it's useful when you have a map and you want to draw like a path on the map. That's where I've used it. You can drag and drop down along the streets to show a different path that was taken by an automobile or something in a particular case. And then the redaction tools to cover a portion of the image. This obviously you would want to do before you present an exhibit. You're going to pre-treat this. A transparent gray box will cover the selected area. The area inside the gray box will still be visible when you're working in Case Explorer or you're pre-treating, you'll see it there. But when the image is opened in presentation mode, the area within the redaction box will be invisible. And the word redacted will appear on the image when it's presented as well. Now the redactions on like photographs would be, you know, persons' faces and things of that kind. Maybe serial numbers, other types of things that you don't think that should be shown during the trial. And then the redactions are temporary overlays. There are 3 ways, though, to make a redaction permanent. You can print the image with markups. You can print them on paper, and you can also print them to PDF files, export with markups. So you can export them as the export option is there for you. And you can perform grab screens in presentation mode to get permanent of the overlays as well. The text tool is really nice because when you're pre-treating documents, you can create a little text box with an arrow pointing to this portion of the exhibit, explaining what it is, and they come in very handy. And then to edit the text in a text box that you've done, you just click on it with the arrow, double click inside the text box and position the cursor where you want to change the text. If you want to change the font, you select the text box using that selector arrow, right click on the box, and then choose the font from a drop down menu that's going to appear. You can also correct the color and the size of the text itself. To adjust the angle of the text box, you can select the text box using that selector arrow, right click on that text box, and then adjust angle is a drop down menu item that appears, and the slide bar comes up and you can adjust it to the left or right to angle the text box if you think that's important. In particular situations, you might want to do that to avoid it covering certain parts of the image that you're working with. And then you can set the background color of the text box as well, right button clicking on it and selecting the color. The background mode must be tinted or opaque to display the color. So that's something to keep in mind. And then this is a procedure you'd follow to set the background to be opaque and to be tinted. The background color is invisible when you pick it as transparent, so you can change it back and forth. To edit the text in the sticky notes, it's basically the same procedure. You select it, double click on the text box to edit it, and click elsewhere on the image when your changes are complete, and that will finish up your editing of the sticky notes. And again, you can do the same thing with the setting of the sticky note background color as well. And then the stamp tool is like a rubber stamp that you can apply in the procedure that you're trying to follow. You're not going to probably use this during the actual presentation. I would do the rubber stamps during the pre-treatment, but there are occasions when it's kind of dramatic and you can apply the rubber stamps before the jury if you practice with it as well. The label tool, to place a label on an item, you can select from different types of labels and create your own. So when you click on this label tool, you'll see the drop-down menu can be a caption and line option, a defendant trial exhibit option, a cross complaints trial exhibit stamp, and then you just pick whichever one you want, and then move the cursor to the area of the exhibit you want to apply the exhibit in the exhibit, and with your left mouse you'd click and you'd apply it at that location. And then if you want to delete it, you would press the Shift plus right click on the label to get rid of it off of the exhibit during your pre-treatment. And again, to select the label, you just click on with the right of the label tool to open the label menu, and then select label. On the select tab, you can set the following options: edit, delete a current label, set the label number using existing trial exhibit numbers, or a sequence of your choice, or customize text. And then the label number source field option, the page ID, the trial exhibit number, and the exhibit number itself also are options for you. To design a label, you're going to click on the arrow to the right of the label tool to open the label menu, and then select the design label option you saw earlier, and then set the following options that you're given: label style, size, color, font size, style, line captions, the exhibit number, the border, and if there's a border, whether it has a square or rounded corners. So a lot of customization can be done, and you can do a preview window to view the developing label, and then edit the label as needed, and then click the Create Label button to create a new label, or click OK to close the design, and the newly created label will be added to the existing drop-down list of your choices. So if you plan on using labels, it's good to go in there and think those through as to how you want to design those labels and get them ready to go. Desk queue. When a document is scanned, a page may not feed into the scanner properly. I've had this happen a number of times, resulting in a distorted or skewed image. And maybe I didn't notice that. You're using a high-speed scanner, a bunch of documents, pages at one time, and one of them gets skewed a little bit. When it gets into Trial Director, you have this option. Instead of rescanning the whole thing, you can use the desk queue option. Use the document aligner feature to improve the appearance and legibility of the image. Desk queuing works at the page document level within a document. For help with scanning mistakes such as missing pages and so on. If you need some more information about that, there's a link regarding correcting scanning mistakes. But hopefully, you kind of monitor that real careful and you don't have too many of those. But if it happens, the desk queuing is not supported for PDF documents or for multi-page TIFF files. The original image is not impacted by desk queuing. A copy of the desk queued version of the image is maintained within the case folder. So the way you get in to use that, you're going to click on the annotation tool and open that toolbar, locate and display the page to desk queue in the image viewer. Select the desk queuing tool on the toolbar and bring your cursor over the image. The cursor will look like the desk queuing tool, a small square with a red border. And be sure the desk queue tool is the only active annotation tool. You hold the left mouse button down and draw a line that parallels the margin of the image. It may be easier to draw this line closer to the right or left margin, so you can use the margin as a guideline. And when the green line is aligned correctly, release the mouse button, and you may notice the image shift as it is desk queued. If you're satisfied, you click OK. If not, cancel, return to step 3. Saving the markups, I kind of dealt with this already, so I'm not going to deal with this particular page and the instructions here. But just carefully note that The markups can be changed afterwards, so you don't have to go through this again. And then the correcting of scanning mistakes. There's a little more information on this page here, that in this section here, where you can go in and insert a document break to separate one document into several documents. You can insert a document break. So in Case Explorer or Document Manager, you can select a page where you need the new document to begin. Then you can right click and select Insert Document Break from the shortcut menu, and then select the page. Select page is now the first page of the next document. And then you can remove a document break if you want to combine multiple documents into a single document. You can remove a document break. In Case Explorer or Document Manager, you select page 1 of the document you wish to combine with the previous document in your list, and then right click and choose Remove Document Break from the shortcut menu, and then both documents are combined into one. And then if you want to insert like a single page in Case Explorer or Document Manager, you expand the document in order to see the individual pages. You right click on the page that should precede the page you're inserting, and then insert page from shortcut menu. And then in the Insert Page dialog box, the new page ID is displayed, and the page ID should be the ID number of the page on which you right click, followed by a suffix. This number can be changed after the insertion process is completed. So then you browse for the page to be inserted, and if you have not yet scanned the page to be inserted, place the page in your scanner and click Get Page from Scanner, and then if the page has been scanned, you can select Browse and locate the file. By default, the trialdirector displays in the browser window the files ending with TIFF extensions. And if the file you're looking for ends in JPEG, BMP, or PNG, typically color documents, then you change the files of type to pictures and graphics in the Browse dialog that you would have showing up for yourself. And then click OK, and the new page now appears in the Case Explorer and in the Document Manager. Now, watermarks. You can set global watermarks, so when printing or exporting images, you can choose to apply a global watermark to all printed or exported images. To set the global watermark for printed or exported images, you would click up on the Pick button in the Print window. So you go up to Print and then Print What, and you'll see the various options here. And you know, one is print with markups, print highlights or redactions, print with watermarks. And then you have a pick option here for this. And so a selection screen appears. You click on the desired watermark that you have developed, and then you can pick the watermarks that you want to put on the image. A preview of the selected watermark appears here, and then you can click the Set option, and there will be no visible indication on the images in the Case Explorer that a watermark has been set, so note that, but the printed or exported images will have the selected watermark applied to them. So now you can apply a footer to the images using Image Brander. Image Brander is used to permanently mark image files with an identifying footer. This is useful to identify the source of images, especially when sharing images with opposing counsel. It can also be used to mark all images used in your case if you desire. So from the Tools menu, in your menu system, you select the Image Brander option, a command, and the Image Brander utility dialog box will appear for you here. And as you look it over, you can see the various options that you have as you get into your image branding down in this area here. So you enter the source and the destination folders and the fields that were provided there. A checkbox is provided if your source folder is also your destination folder. So when adding a brand to a file, the branded files are duplicated in the destination folder. If you set the destination folder to be the same as the source folder, the files in the source folder will be branded. This process is not reversible, so this is something to note. In the image options box, select the image types to be branded, token format, and the border options. And if an incremented number will be included, you'd enter the start number in the field that is going to be provided to you. Tokens are codes that you can use to insert certain types of information in the brand. You click the tokens button to display the list of available tokens. So you have available tokens showing up here. Insert the image volume label. That's what the token looks like. Insert the image file path. That's what the token looks like there, and so on. So you can insert these into the headers and footers and so on, but it warns you these can be really long, so you got to pay attention to that as well. In the image footer box, you're going to enter your desired brand using the text or tokens, and to add the brand to the images in your source folder, you're going to click brand. So here you can see where they're entering some of these branding options, file name, the folder, and so on. In the center, you can put what you want there, and then your right alignment. Using the tokens shown in the image footer, here's what the results would look like. You're going to have the ID showing up with your path, your C drive. You're going to have your file extension showing up, and your incrementing numbers over here. Exporting selected items to Adobe PDF. There's a really great feature in trialdirector, so you can export various types of images to PDF files. So in the document manager, you can export documents directly to Adobe PDF files. Before you use this feature, you got to keep the following in mind. A printer driver must be installed on your computer. If you do not have a physical printer to connect to, install any of the printer drivers built into Windows. It doesn't really matter. Or install a virtual PDF printer such as QtPD. But once you've got that done, then you can do your exporting to PDF files. Creating a PDF file from a selected pages of different documents will result in the creation of a single PDF file. This feature is not designed to create a new PDF file at documents boundaries. Order of the items in the new PDF file is determined by an ID, not by the order in which you selected the items. So for example, if you selected TREX005 and then 003 and 009, they will be listed in the following order in the PDF, in this order, not in the order that you had selected them. If you select the Microsoft PowerPoint, Excel, or Word native file to include, a print placeholder will appear in its place within the PDF file. And this is a screenshot that shows you the basic menu system when you go into the creation of these PDF files. Create a new PDF file for each document, the name of files using the document IDs, enter the folder name where you're going to put these, the quality of the PDF file, and usually I actually put this up to the highest, and then you can apply all the markups if you want. These are your check mark options that you have when you do your exporting, and then these are the various steps that basically you'd go through when you do the exporting to PDF. And then printing items, setting the printer properties, select the printer output options and the printer range. So open the print menu again by selecting the print option from the file menu, and then select print selected items. So if you picked a bunch of different items you want to print in the Case Explorer, and then you right click on the record select of any item, and you print the selected items. So here we have the various items showing up again as to what you want to include on the printouts. And then if you want to select just the items that you have, you can do a whole workbook. If you select workbooks here, and then just entire one particular document or a current page item, and so on. The window allows you to select the printer if you want to print out, or you can pick the PDF option if you want to go there. And then the printer properties, you can select the various types of things like the page, the type of pages you're going to be using, the type of paper that you're going to output to, and so on and so forth. And then the various topics, image pages, image page thumbnails. You can put out thumbnails and barcode sheets. All of these options are available to you. And printing with markups. Now I'm kind of running short on time, so I want to just kind of flip through this. This is a 64-page PowerPoint, and you can see there are a lot more options for printing that I'm not going to be able to get to here, but I do have this PDF, this PowerPoint available to you, and I want you to know that it's available. If you get into printing and you want to go review all of your printing options, they're all in this particular download off of our course website here, and so do go get that under the preparing and managing exhibits here. This particular TX file that you can download. And now I wanted to go into attaching exhibits to testimony very quickly here, and just kind of go over that. And instead of using the PowerPoint here that's available to you, I'm looking at my time. I want to leave some time for questions here. I'm going to go into trialdirector and show you where I have actually done this. So here is a transcript, and I want to attach some exhibits so they show up when I go into presentation mode. And what I've done here is I've gone over to my case library. I've got transcript manager open, and I can come down in my case library and go up to a particular document that I want to put into the transcript at a certain point. I come down here and I'll pick the pacemaker exhibit. So I'm going to select that. And now I've got that selected. I go back to my transcript manager, and I come down to a place in my transcript where I want that to show up during the actual presentation of this transcript portion to the jury. I want that to show up side by side with the transcript. So I go to that place in my transcript, and then I can right button click on the line, and I can then go ahead and attach a synchronized exhibit. And notice it remembered the identifier was pacemaker. I could type a little bit more in. She mentions pacemaker here. She really doesn't, but just for the sake of argument. And so now that is the file that I had highlighted over in my case library. And I say next, and use the current transcript line or the current audio video position. I'm going to use the current transcript line here and attach it. And then you can see that it a little thumbnail shows up. That does not show up when you're playing the actual exhibit itself. It doesn't show up. It's just for your notification. And then if you decide you made a mistake on that, you didn't want it there, you just right button click on it, and then you can clear that synchronized exhibit out of the transcript itself. So it took it out of there. Now, when I want to present this particular clip that I have the transcript exhibit attached to, I go into the trialdirector presentation mode, which I've got here, and I have to go and find, go to the transcript folder, which is brought up here. So I have my transcripts, and then I go over here to pick the exact clip that I want to use, which I have already selected, and I shove it up by clicking here to put it into the in front of the jury, and then I can pick my play option here. I'll move it back to the beginning so you can see how this works. And you can see then the exhibit will show up side by side with the actual testimony that's being made. So again, it will disappear. It will disappear after the that exhibit mentioned, referenced, is gone out of the testimony. But that's basically the way you would do this. You would go into your transcript manager workbook, and then you would go ahead and pick the particular transcript that has the annotation that is attached to that particular line. And once you have selected it, then you would throw it up on the screen, and then you would you go ahead and play it, and it would show up next to the other exhibit.